Hey YouTube, what is up? So today basically I wanted to do a little Q&A vid. Today I wanted to cover up some things that I might not be able to discuss in other videos. Just certain questions I've gotten. I've given myself some of my own questions. I've come up with some of my own questions for myself, that I would answer. Maybe if any of you guys were wondering, and then I'm also going to be answering questions that I've actually gotten from viewers. Now I'm going to start out today with: do I run a chiller or heater, and do I plan on running one? I do not run either of them on this tank. For a couple different reasons. I don't run a chiller mainly because A, they're very expensive for this size tank. B, I don't have issues with controlling my temperature. It always stays a steady 78 to 80 degrees. Usually I've never had issues with temperature on this tank or my other tank for that matter, my 24 gallon. And I've never had any issues with that. My fish and my corals and inverts in the tank aren't particularly fragile, so they don't require so much control over your temperature and things like that. Also, reason C would be there's a lot of different horror stories, I guess, of people talking about how their thermometer failed or exploded or whatever, and their whole tank crashed because of it, or their chiller just something went out of whack and it brought the temperature down really low, much lower than it was supposed to. So I really didn't feel like dealing with any of that, and I didn't feel like spending the money on something I really didn't need. Even Mr. Saltwater Tank himself says that chillers just aren't worth the money and they're not worth your time. So overall, I just don't think you really need them. Where I live, it stays pretty warm, which is great for this tank, or any reef tank for that matter. So it's not like I live somewhere where it's going to get super cold in the winter and stuff like that, so I don't really need a heater either. So now, do I run an auto top-off system? No, I do not, and that's for two major reasons. The first reason being that my overflow box does not properly, it's not completely compatible with my return pump, and that's just an issue I have with this particular hang-on back overflow box. I've gone through 3 of these, and I've never been able to properly match them up with my return pump, and because of that, my water level in the sump just never stays steady. And that right there is in order for an auto top off system to work correctly, the water level in the sump has to be set at a certain level, and I've never been able to keep it steady. So I've never, I cannot at this point add one of those to my tank safely. Another reason being I don't have an issue with topping off my tank, and my salinity usually stays pretty steady, so I don't have an issue with that. And again, my fish and particular corals in this tank are not extremely fragile, so it's not like they're going to require having an auto top off system. Do you plan on keeping any SPS in this tank? I do. It's mainly going to be pretty much the only SPS I plan on keeping eventually would be things like bird's nest and Capricornus corals. They're good beginner SPS corals that are pretty hardy. They don't require too much of intense light, which is great for my tank. And when I do eventually add those 2 different types of corals, I'll be placing them up high on the rocks so they get the most amount of light that they can. And so I do plan on keeping SPS eventually. It'll be the hardier kinds, unless I do eventually, maybe as I progress, I might end up upgrading the light and figuring out how to keep SPS a little bit better. But as for now, as it stands now, no, I do not plan on keeping any of the more difficult, but I'll keep a few hardy ones. Do I plan on keeping clams in the tank? Yes, I do. I will be picking out a Maxima clam, Maxima, I think that's a Maxima clam in the tank very soon. They're very fairly affordable at my local fish store, so I'll be picking up one of those and placing them up, medium to high level in the tank so they get the most amount of light, because they do. Most clams require a good amount of light. They're not too expensive at my local fish store, and they're always looking really healthy and they're good size. So yes, I will be picking up one probably in the near future. Do you target feed any of your corals? No, I do not. I do keep LPS in the tank mainly. I have my cup coral right here, my acan brain coral right there, and then my frog spawn coral right here. I keep 3 LPS corals in the tank. I don't target feed. I've never felt the need to do so. Some corals require that to stay healthy, and LPS does. I might eventually start target feeding my corals, but as for now, no, I do not target feed any of my corals. They just kind of catch anything that happens to be floating by. When I feed the tank, I do keep my power heads on so that I don't turn them off. So that way, the corals do get some of the food that flies around, and the fish don't eat it or anything like that. It lands on them, so they do get the most of their nutrition comes from the light, and they catch anything else that happens to land on them. Do you plan on upgrading this tank? Yes, I do. I will be hopefully moving within a year or so, and when I do move, I will be upgrading the tank to probably a 150 gallon at least, and so that'll be really fun. I'm really excited for that. I'd be changing some things. As far as the skimmer goes, I'd probably be picking up a high door performer skimmer, of course going with a +1 on the skimmer. I'd be, of course, still doing a 4-inch deep sand bed. I'd be keeping a lot of different, fish, such as a powder blue tang, a purple tang, a Desjardins sailfin tang, things like that. I'd also be keeping a majestic angel in the tank. It would be a reef. I probably would be keeping more SPS in the tank, and I would be getting a majestic angel because they tend to, be reef safe. Like their track record seems to be fairly good compared to the other angels as far as reef tanks go. So yeah, I will be upgrading eventually, probably within a year, to at least 150, preferably 180, and at least 6 feet long. So I'd be keeping a couple of different tangs. All these guys would be going in there. All the corals, all the rocks from this tank and the 24-gallon. The clowns from the 24-gallon would be going in there, along with these black guys, these black clowns right here. So yeah, I will be upgrading eventually. How do I keep my pH up in the tank? I have a question from a viewer about that. Someone was asking me. I don't have crushed coral in the tank, as you can see. I don't recommend anyone using crushed coral in their reef tanks, but I don't. When I originally set this tank up, I had some issues keeping the pH up. I actually lost my cleaner shrimp because of that. It dropped one night for some reason. So in the beginning, I did have a little bit of issues with it, so I just picked up this $10 thing of reef buffer, pH buffer right here from my local fish store, and I would just adjust it when needed. And ever since that initial issue I had with it, I haven't had too much issues with keeping my pH where it's supposed to be. How do I keep my aggression down with the fish? Some people, I was on, what was it, 3 Reef, and I posted my, I was on a 3 Reef forum, and my bad, and I was telling people about my tank, and they were just, I had a lot of people saying, oh, your tank's so overstocked, your fish are gonna end up killing each other, ripping each other apart, you gotta upgrade, you don't know what you're doing. I had a couple people telling me that, and my tank is not overstocked, let me tell you guys. I don't have issues with nitrates or phosphates or anything like that, or ammonia, obviously. Now, how do I keep my aggression down, and I'm going to also talk about how I keep the tank looking good, basically, and, keeping algae blooms away, keeping all the levels where they're supposed to be. I have first of all, the skimmer's rated for tanks up to 125 gallons, so it's a little bit bigger than what I needed, which is great, which is what I recommend you do, especially if you want to keep the maintenance of your tank at a minimum, or at a moderate level. I also have a refugium, which does, despite the fact that it's not a huge refugium, it does its job. And I keep the flow nice in the tank. There's a lot of flow in the tank, and I keep up with my water changes. I have a good sized cleanup crew. I also have a 4-inch deep sand bed, which does a good job filtering the tank. And of course, in the future, it'll be even more powerful, and they'll be able to filter even more, which would make my tank require less water changes and things like that. So yeah, that's how I keep my levels where they're supposed to be. Now, as far as aggression goes, I think, like that. So yeah, that's how I keep my levels where they're supposed to be. Now, as far as aggression goes, I think, feeding your fish is a major thing when it comes to keeping the aggression down with the community and of the fish. I feed my tank 2, sometimes 3 times a day, and I think that keeps the fish nice and not panicking. I think that kind of, when fish are hungry or maybe they're not completely full yet, I think sometimes they go into kind of survival mode, and they are always on guard, and they're always trying to fight each other and stuff like that, to because they feel like they might starve if they don't do so. So I think keeping your fish well fed, if your tank can handle the amount of feedings that you plan on feeding, for me 2 to 3 times a day, if your tank and your filtration can handle that, I recommend doing that if you keep on keeping more than the recommended amount of fish in the tank. I have my Antheus here, the Tang, my Melnarthras, which is sleeping right now, my Cardinal right here, my Royal Grandma, my Black Clown Pair, and I think that's all, and my Blenny too. And I plan on getting more fish. I plan on adding, of course, 2 more Bartlett's Antheus, a couple more wrasse, and then a large showpiece fish and a goby and things like that, a little neon goby. So yeah, I still plan on adding more fish, and I don't think I will have any issues with keeping the levels where they're supposed to be. So just keep your fish well fed, get good flow in the tank. That keeps them occupied, as you can see, fighting the current. I'd say if there wasn't enough flow in the tank, they might be kind of bored. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but they might be kind of bored and start going after each other. But I also notice when I end up feeding only once a day, or maybe if I skip a day of feeding, all the fish are kind of, some of the fish are nipping at each other a little bit more. So I definitely would say that the fish are well behaved because of how much I feed and the amount of flow I have in the tank. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it as far as questions go. Yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure and like the video, drop a comment if you have anything to say at all. If you have any questions, recommendations, video requests, anything to say about the tank or the video, anything like that, I'd love to hear from you. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have, I really do appreciate it. And yeah, have a great day. If you have any questions too, and maybe you want to want me to make a video talking about that topic, then I'll try to make it. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.